Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're getting a look at the new Hascon exclusive Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy, Covert Agent Ravage, and Decepticons Forever Ravage. Covert Agent referring to the Beast Wars version of the character, and then Decepticons Forever Ravage being the classic G1 toy. And the term itself, Decepticons Forever, obviously being a reference to the character's battle cry right before he turns into his classic cassette tape mode. Now this toy is definitely one of the more exciting exclusives we've had this year. He's not just like a quick recolor or anything. He is a very, very extensive retool of the Kingdom Cheetor toy, being easily over 50% new figure. And he is designed to look like Ravage's on-screen appearance in the CGI Beast Wars cartoon, which was, a very different take on the character, making him humanoid, giving him actual spoken lines for the first time in a TV show. Our G1 Ravage here is just kind of a little pack-in bonus. It is meant to, represent and help recreate the scene of the Beast Wars character transforming into his classic alt mode, and just so happens to, be a fully functional G1 Ravage toy. However, instead of stickers, the toy actually now uses tampagraphs to create the cassette tape details, which is very cool. And I believe he actually has details printed on both sides too, which is another first. So overall, very exciting set. I can't wait to open this up. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know this goes. We're going to take a look at Ravage's packaging, which is very extensive, very cool. We're going to open it up. We'll see the instructions. We'll see this whole backdrop thing here, because this is an actual backdrop a la Studio Series or the Quintesson Pit of Judgment. Even has a little pocket for the cassette to go into. And then we'll see the toys themselves in both their alt modes and main modes, one being a robot mode, the other being a beast mode. I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons with this set today. And then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So the toys do come in a fully original, fully customized box. It's just a plain, thin rectangular box. But the insert in here cuts in at an angle right there, you can see. And it does have that little pocket, which I believe can actually flip in and out. I'm pretty sure. Maybe. We'll find out. And it is sized to be able to actually admit the Ravage cassette to help create that scene from Beast Wars where he, turns into a cassette and then jumps into this little compartment in his ship. You can see accessories over here. You have the leg guns for the original Ravage toy, still chromed up, which is nice. And then you have the dual handguns that the Beast Wars Ravage carries, which can also attach to his legs in Beast Mode and kind of sort of mimic the way that the G1 toy mounts his weapons. And I did say Beast Mode because even though Ravage was never shown to transform into any kind of Beast Mode in the Beast Wars cartoon, this toy does actually have a Panther-like Beast Mode. Here we get a nice little bit of side art of the Beast Wars Ravage with a red Preacon symbol, mimicking the one found on his shoulder. On this side, we get some really nice flavor text, just kind of describing what went down with Ravage in the Beast Wars cartoon. And that text reads, "After the Great War, Ravage was one of the Decepticons granted amnesty and reformatted into a Predacon. As Covert Agent Ravage, he is secretly dispatched to Earth by the Tripredacus Council during the Beast Wars. He is tasked with terminating the rogue Predacon called Megatron with extreme prejudice. But after the Golden Disc reveals a secret message from his long-dead Decepticon leader, he realizes where his allegiance lies. Decepticons Forever." Hence, the name of the cassette mode. And then we get around to the back right here. Okay, here is where we get the full artwork, which looks absolutely fantastic. You get our robot mode Ravage declaring his Decepticons Forever thing, and then doing some really bizarre transformation into a cassette. It doesn't make sense. I mean, the show used CGI magic to make it happen. The artwork here is using, just magic. He goes from robot to folded up robot to something that looks kind of like G1 Ravage halfway transformed, and then a perfect cassette tape. It takes a lot of suspension of disbelief, but whatever. Also, our new Ravage is drawn with a tail, and I don't believe he actually had one in the cartoon, in the Beast Wars cartoon, I could be wrong, might be misremembering, but I don't think he had a tail. Maybe? I don't know. Small detail. It's just the fact that he is a retool of Cheetor and does have to turn into a panther himself. And then as a nice little shout out to my favorite Transformers series, we get this little blurb right here, inspired by Beast Wars Transformers. Which, I mean, I think he's the first War for Cybertron toy to be explicitly labeled with Beast Wars, isn't he? Maybe? I could be misremembering again. I don't know. But I think all the Kingdom toys, like, they just said Kingdom, they actually say Beast Wars on them. Of course, your new reissues have that on there, too, but... Alright, enough rambling. So yeah, I love the packaging. I love the blues, the very cool blues used on this thing. It looks like a convention exclusive, which is what you want to see, right? You don't want it to feel just like any old toy that could have been released anywhere. You want this to feel very special, and the packaging is the first part of that. Okay, here's our instruction sheet for the full set. And you can see the cover part, at least, is done up in full color. You get this nice render of Ravage here on the front. You get your logo, Transformers branding, all that. The names of the two characters, Covert Agent Ravage, Decepticons Forever Ravage. There's like a wireframe of the G1 Ravage there. Beast Wars logo again. It's always nice to see, right? And then here, you get another full color render of the Covert Agent Ravage toy. Little how-to for having him wield his guns. One thing they don't show you is that you can attach his guns at like his hips here. Have him draw them from the hip like he does in the show. All right, then we get straight into the transformation for the toy. And even this part's still in full color. They just kind of fade out parts that aren't being used in that step. Now, one thing that's really interesting, it's worth pointing out, is in these instructions, our Ravage toy is missing most of his fur patternings from like the outer plastic areas. Now, that's very interesting because that's much more accurate to how Ravage appeared in the cartoon, right? He wasn't shown to be an organic-looking Transformer. He's very robotic-looking, you know, very metallic. And it seems that the original concept for this toy was much more in line with that look. The only fur patterns you see here are just the parts that are reused from Cheetor that already had fur on them. So for whatever reason, I'm guessing for a consistent look across the figure, they opted to actually add fur patterns to like the head and the back of the arms and all that. The Jaguar neck here. Personally, I would have preferred if they just left him smooth. It would have made him much more accurate looking and would have made a Tigertron recolor from this, Transmetal Tigertron make a lot more sense, but oh well. All right, we finished up our transformation here. Shows you how to open and close his mouth, store his blasters on his cat hips. And then we have a quick transformation for the G1 Ravage toy, which interestingly is not done up in like CGI renders, but just a wireframe kind of render. So you can see his nice simple transformation there, along with the addition of his little rocket booster things or missiles. So yeah, very nice looking instructions. I like the fact that they're in color, they're pretty easy to read. And they do make me wish that we did get a much smoother looking Ravage like what we see here. Here we can see both Ravages in their beast mode. In the case of our Beast Wars Ravage, this is his alternate mode. For G1 Ravage, this is actually his main mode. He doesn't have a humanoid robot mode to speak of. But, I thought it'd be nice to see these two together and just how they compare to each other. You can see the similarities between, their designs, where he has like some silver here on the bot mode, the beast mode, and then he has some sort of attachment here around the hips. Now his point backwards, so they look more like rocket boosters than any sort of like gun emplacements or missile launchers or anything. Now you can actually switch these around if you so choose. But you'll see, while they can point forward, now they're just pointing at the backs of his arms, so they're not very useful that way. So you can do it if you want to, if you're just really longing to have the guns point forward a la G1 Ratchet. However, they do look a lot better pointing to the back. It almost gives him this look of like Transmetal Cheetor with, some sort of rocket boosters. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention. So his front beast legs here, they actually come assembled backwards in the packaging, and it appears to be a universal occurrence. I think they're all built this way. So they're swapped side to side. Now, luckily, it's a very easy fix. You just pop these off the ball joint at the shoulder, flip them around, and you get the way it's supposed to look with the bigger bicep area in the front. So, weird little mishap, but very easy fix. Our new Ravage here, or sorry, our, I guess, new old Ravage. All the tolerances, everything are nice and tight still. He feels just as good as any other copy of this figure. Can't really complain. You can see he's got print on both sides here, which is nice. We'll get a little more into him in a moment. Set him aside for now. Let's get a close look at our Covert Agent Ravage's Beast Mode. So like I said, they have all this added fur detail here, which I'm just not a fan of. It doesn't make a lot of sense, really, for him to have this, because he was never portrayed as an organic Transformer. And it looks especially weird because he does have robotic parts showing. So they may as well have just gone full, metallic with him. Now I get that would have meant that he would have had this area here and, the backs of these legs still being fur patterned. Now, they could have always, retooled these to smooth them out, but even if they didn't want to do that and they just left the legs furry, I think that still would have been preferable to just changing the whole thing. Yeah, it does make his beast mode look more consistent when most of it's covered in a fur texture. However, it really takes away from the accuracy and also really hurts any future prospect at a Transmetal Tigatron. Because Transmetals, the whole thing with them is that they had, robotic beast modes. And, they would either have to go and smooth all this out and make it metallic looking, robotic looking, or, they could just ignore it. I wouldn't really be too shocked if they released a toy that's just literally a white version of this and called it Transmetal Tigatron, even though the fur patterns wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. Hasbro will at times take liberties with accuracy just for the sake of pumping out a quick toy, so, Okay, here's a comparison shot with the original use of this mold, Kingdom Cheetor. So we can highlight the differences between these guys. So the leg portions, so the front legs are completely the same, and the back legs starting at this joint right here are also the same. Right, all the same pieces, where the fur comes from. And then aside from that, really everything appears to be completely new tooling, which is very interesting. The tail for Cheetor is just a solid piece that forms an axe weapon. For Ravage, it is non-detachable. It's attached via a pin and is actually articulated, so it can actually wag up and down. So that's pretty neat. The upper legs here, as you'll be able to see, are completely different. And the whole top section transforms in a very different way, even though they still have the same front legs slapped on. You can see the head is its own thing and is really just Ravage's, robot mode head. But it still works for a cat mode because his robot mode head was based off of Tigatron's beast mode head. So, just a little different looking. Admittedly, kind of small for his body. He's got a very wide torso. Makes him look kind of like a real beefcake. But all this is different. You can see that Cheetor, his hands, and arms and stuff form the underbelly. Ravage's, his robot arms actually form the shoulder blades on the back here. So that's really neat. It's very interesting to see how much they can change this design and redo a lot of it and make for a very different transformation, at least, from the waist up. So I really dig that. I really appreciate the amount of effort that went into helping this guy stand apart and resemble the Beast Wars CGI model a lot more than he does Kingdom Cheetor. Because if he had just been mostly just, this version with, black fur and a new head, it would feel pretty cheap and would also make the other use of this mold, Shadow Panther, far less unique and interesting. Speaking of Shadow Panther, here are all the other uses of the Kingdom Cheetor mold. So again, we get regular Cheetor, we get Netflix Cheetor, which is much more show accurately colored, and then we get Shadow Panther, who was a late wave edition of Kingdom, and is based off of the old Tripredicus Agent / Shadow Panther toy from originally Takara in their Japanese Beast Wars, and was, released in a limited fashion by Hasbro later. And because this toy is, kind of on again, off again, considered some form of Ravage, their colorations are very similar. They both have, black fur and turn into some sort of panther, jaguar type animal, red eyes, and a lot of silver. So color-wise, these two are the most similar to each other. However, when it comes to molding, this guy is almost identical to the Cheetors aside from new robot head. So very interesting dynamic between all these. Then of course you do have the Tigatrons, which are coming down the pike. You have the standard white version, and then you have what's called Mutant Tigatron, which is an orange tiger. And those toys are technically a different mold from these. They are Voyager classes, but they share a lot of the same engineering as the Cheetor. So I'm sure when I do actually get those in hand, you can look forward to some group shots with all the cats. Even though they're not all the same size, they are still going to look pretty cool together. All right, let's switch back over to our Decepticons Forever Ravage, or G1 Ravage, if you will, and compare him to a more contemporary release of this mold. This is the vintage reissue of G1 Ravage, which painstakingly recreates the original toy down to like every detail. So we can see how they differ. And the biggest things that I can tell, the like metal used for the legs is much lighter on our new version. Here it's like so dark it looks almost black. The gold colored eyes of the original are replaced with silver on this one. And then aside from that, you'll see that the sticker decals or sticker details for the G1 toy, they were just on one side as far as the tape, and then there was a rub sign on the other side, and then the rest of that's left mostly black. This guy gets the sticker details on both sides, even when it has to go against like the molded details. But instead of stickers, like I said earlier, it's tampagraphs, which means way less likely to peel off and stuff. So, I mean, at a really quick glance, they might look the same, but there are some subtle differences. Now, they're not huge differences. There's nothing that's so much better or worse about either one of these that I would say one version, is the superior one. And honestly, having bought, all the G1 reissues that came out over the last couple of years, this, to me, feels pretty redundant. Like, I did not need another G1 Ravage in my collection. However, if you did miss out on those, or didn't pick up this particular 2-pack, this could be a good chance to get one. Though if you're like me and you're more of a completionist, you're probably not getting much out of this release. It's just not doing enough different to really make it feel like it's something new. It kind of reminds me of the Extra Frenzy that came with those Japanese exclusive cassettes from Pulse. Like, we already got a Frenzy that was, a vintage reissue, and then we got another one, and like the real difference between them is that the Pulse exclusive one like didn't have painted eyes and instead had the circle on his forehead painted like he's some kind of Cyclops. So again, I really just did not need that. I don't know why they included it. Could have saved us some money and just released the 2 dinosaur cassettes, but oh well. Okay, here are G1 Ravages in their cassette modes, and you can see they're very similar looking. They really painstakingly recreated these tape details. The big difference is that, well, you get a more realistic looking kind of actual like tape roll window here. For the new one, they do like a line art kind of thing. So they take away some of the realism there. Obviously, the lighter colored legs give a more, interrupted effect than these, which make it look more like it's wholly black. And then the big difference here is when you turn it around. The original toy has no tape detailing over here. You're only really supposed to look at it from the front, where now you can, look at him from both sides and he still looks like a cassette tape. So if that's something you like, that may be a reason to, get this guy over this one. It's really up to you. Like I said, with the robot modes, or I guess beast modes, doesn't make enough of a difference to me to warrant the purchase either way. I really just see this Ravage as just extra stuff that's thrown in with the toy that I really want. Now, here is a shot that I've been wanting to do since I found out the set was coming out. This is an Evolution of Ravage shot. Now, I'm going to do 2 of these, starting with the alt modes. So you have the G1 Ravage, turns into a cassette. Then you have our Dawn of the Predacus Ravage, who is supposed to be kind of a in-between G1 and Beast Wars form for the character. And he was a BotCon 2016 exclusive. I did review this guy during my review on the Dawn of the Predacus box set for the Beast Wars anniversary. So if you want to see more of this and, how he combines and all that, because he is part of a combiner, make sure to check that out. So he turns into a sports car, which is a huge departure. And then we get to his Beast Wars form that's seen on screen. And then we even get Transmetal 2 Tripredicus Agent, which was an old Walmart exclusive Beast Wars toy that came out after the show had ended and was something that was really high demand. I was really lucky to get one of these, and I absolutely love this toy. I think it looks even better than the Cheetor that it's based off of. And this toy was confirmed to actually be Ravage during the IDW Beast Wars comics. Not the new ones, but the old comics that supplemented the ongoing TV show. It was called, was it The Gathering and the Ascending? So this proved to be a new form of Ravage. He also did appear in the 3H BotCon stories, which also do their own take on, extended universe fiction for the TV show. Those two are kind of mutually exclusive from one another. They don't, their events don't really line up, though some ideas are borrowed from the BotCon one for the IDW one. So, either way, regardless of which continuity you think is like the canon of the Beast Wars cartoon, if either one, this is a form of Ravage, and honestly a very, very cool one. So it is really interesting to see how what starts out as Ravage's, main form, that of some sort of a big cat, eventually gets pushed to the back seat and becomes an alt mode for him as he takes up an actual robot form. So very interesting to see how the character evolves there. Okay, now it's time to transform our Covert Agent Ravage. As far as the regular one, I'm not going to show that one because I showed it on the original review for the vintage, but also it's really simple. You don't really need me to show you that. All right, so you want to start by removing these weapons if they're still attached. Set them aside for now. And let's do this part of the transformation first because it's the one that's just like Cheetor's. So you just kind of extend the legs out a bit, push the heels of his robot feet through, swing the beast legs all the way up to come kind of like a shin armor. Get the feet out like so. Same thing here. Okay. Rotate the knees out a little bit. All right. So there's the familiar part. Now we get to the newer stuff, which is pretty cool. All right, so the first thing we're doing, you're gonna pull this up. It's not tabbed in very solidly, but just kind of make sure it is untabbed. You're gonna push, or I guess pull the chest section down like this. Ooh, got caught. All right, that's gonna pull all this through, and this can only swing all the way down if the waist is completely straight. So do that to get the clearance. You can see that pulled his arms out of the back here. So you're gonna rotate the arms out, get them out of the way, unfurl the elbows, swing these forward, get his fists positioned like this. So do the same thing here, kind of straighten his arms out, get him looking kind of natural. All right, swing these kind of just out to the side for now. You're gonna bring this whole beast's neck section in like so, and then just bring the chest, the robot chest, back like that. So you can see this start to kind of form and come together. All right, you're gonna rotate the front beast legs back, and these little tabs here are gonna go into the little ball joint gaps for the beast legs. Just help hold everything in place. All right, and then the legs, they just kind of dangle there like a cape of some sort along with the tail. So whole lot of back kibble going on, which, the CGI model didn't have any back kibble, but it also didn't actually have to transform into anything realistically. So, what can you do? Oh yeah, make sure that when you plug swing the chest back, that everything plugs in, like the shoulder panels are slotted in there. So it should feel nice and solid. All right. So here's the base robot mode. See, it's very cool looking. And you can either attach his blasters to his hips to have them in kind of like a standby configuration, or you can make him actually wield them. I like that they store on his hips. Very gunslinger-like. Very neat. All right, so you can put him in his fists, like so. All right, now Covert Agent Ravage is ready for action. This is cool. He looks almost exactly like he did in the show. You know, the bottom legs are a little different because they're Cheetors, and he does have the, you know, extra kibble on the back for the beast mode parts. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty spot on. Like the chest details, the head, all that. Obviously, the fur is not supposed to be there, but, you know, we already touched on that quite a bit. I will say his arms do look a little small. Like he really needs to go, you know, do some curls or something. And I guess that's just a product of how he has to transform. They all gotta like fit inside here. But yeah, arms look a little puny. As far as tolerances, the head is on this like complex ball joint type thing going on here. It can look back and forth quite a bit, look up a little, but it is kind of limited by the structure that's attached to. The mouth does open and close fully, which is really neat. Really nice touch there, makes him very expressive. The arms are on universal joints. He has a bicep swivel. He has double bend elbows because of his transformation, so you can get those like really cool little gun-wielding poses, which is neat. He has wrist swivel, so that's nice. He gets a full waist swivel, though the kibble can get in the way of that. You just have to move it out of the way. Universal hips, which are pretty tight. He has thigh swivel, really, I guess knee swivel, also very tight. Single bend knees, and then ankle rocking and tilting, just like Cheetor. So very, very posable. He hits like all the marks, which is great. And a lot of his parts seem to have been tightened up from, you know, how they are on Cheetor. Not that they were particularly loose on Cheetor, and in fact, in some instances, I wouldn't mind them being a little bit looser on Ravage, but they're still within, you know, what I consider acceptable, you know, not a problem. So it looks really great. You can see he's got the cool red Preacon symbol on the shoulder. I was kind of hoping they do the Decepticon symbol on the other side, but I think that's actually not tune accurate, so I guess it's okay. So yeah, looks really good, looks very menacing, and you know, he's just loaded with new parts. You can see here the upper legs, these are all new, and they're actually based off of the details from Transmetal Cheetor's legs. Because, you know, the CGI model for Ravage was just a heavily modified take on Transmetal Cheetor's body. So I am glad they bothered to retool that part. It also does lead credence to the idea of there maybe being a Transmetal Tigatron coming from this at some point, since those details do line up. Now you know I had to do this one. Here we can finally see the backdrop, that is, you know, the inside of Ravage's ship. I've got my Covert Agent Ravage posed up in my best approximation of his pose from the back of the packaging. You know, boldly declaring Decepticons forever. And while I can't suspend his little cassette version in the air magically, there's this handy little pocket that he can just fit right into to emulate that little like cassette door that he, you know, pops himself into. And there. With this, you have a complete scene for Ravage's climactic moment in the Beast Wars cartoon. Now, one thing I want to point out is that without the weight of this deluxe Ravage standing on the base part, this backdrop has a tendency to fall back like that. Probably won't fall over all the way, but it's going to lean a bit. So if you want it to look good, make sure to keep them on there just like that. It's not a big deal, but I do wish they would have put a little more back support, you know, longer cardboard back here or something just to keep it from tipping like that. I don't like the lack of stability there. But it does look fantastic and, you know, accommodates both versions of Ravage in a way that makes sense and kind of like a diorama type setup. And the base part of this is significantly deeper than, you know, what you'd find on most of like the Studio Series backdrops, which means he actually has room to like be on this thing without trying to fall over the edge, so that's nice. Here we get a robot mode comparison with the Kingdom Cheetor. And, you know, unsurprisingly, everything from, like, the knees up is completely different looking. You know, the leg kibble is still the same pieces, but, you know, they're arranged very differently from one another. They're hidden away on the back, so that part's not insanely obvious. And due to the new tooling and all, you know, all this being completely different and redone, Ravage ends up being a fair bit taller than Cheetor. Not towering over him, but about half a head taller, which I think is appropriate. Ravage is supposed to be, you know, kind of more intimidating than, you know, young kid appeal character Cheetor. So, yeah, I really like how much they've done to actually set these two apart from one another. And here's our full mold group shot for the robot modes. And as I was mentioning, there's some really interesting give and take here with Ravage and the Shadow Panther toy. You know, color-wise, they're very, very similar looking. And you wouldn't be, you know, faulted for believing that they're just like two forms of the same character. And, you know, in some instances, you'd be correct. However, when it comes to molding, again, this guy is built much more similarly to Cheetor. So there's a lot going on there, and I really like that, right? Because of his colors, he doesn't feel too much like getting another Cheetor, but because of his shape and his head design and everything, he doesn't feel like he's, you know, stepping on Ravage's toes. They're each quite distinct from one another. And Shadow Panther is, you know, obviously a panther. It's in the name. Ravage, though, I don't know if there's ever like a full, concise agreement on his beast mode. I think he's generally considered a jaguar, so you can look at it that way too. Like, yeah, they're both black cats, but one's a panther, one's a jaguar. It, you know, kind of works. So I do like the variety here. Of course, then when it comes to our two Cheetors themselves, you know, they're two of the same guy. You just decide which version you like more. If you see my reviews for these two, you know I almost completely prefer the Netflix toy over the Kingdom one, just because the colors are so much, not just more accurate, but better looking. Really, the only thing I don't like about him is that they didn't paint the tail blade. Like, there's no reason not to paint that. There is an argument for not painting the back of the beast legs here if you're trying to make, you know, a better looking beast mode, but this is hidden. You can paint this. It's fine. So it's still, after having these for a while, hard to say which one is like the definitive take. But when it comes to Ravage here and his paint and his colors, I am completely satisfied. Like, everything looks as it should. Now the fur thing's still a little weird to me. I get why they did it, because it would have been much harder to go and actually retool all of the existing parts to remove that texturing. Would have drastically increased the budget on this guy. So I get it. They want to make, you know, a coherent looking beast mode. Not my preference, but understandable. And for our final group shot of the review, we're doing another evolution setup, this time for the main mode of Ravage. So our G1 guy is just an unassuming little jaguar. Then during the Golden Age, he gets rebuilt into a robotic form with a vehicular alt mode. For Beast Wars, he keeps his robotic form, but reformats it to get a new beast form, and then eventually undergoes a Transmetal 2 upgrade, either because Magmatron resurrects him or Tarantulas, depending on the continuity. And again, the continuity of Ravage is a little messy because a lot of these forms, all but the forms that come in this pack, the G1 and Beast Wars, are really just part of, you know, questionably canon continuities. When I say, I mean, technically every continuity is canon, but I mean like questionably canon to the TV show. You know, think of it as like kind of extended universe type stuff. As far as we know, it's canon, but Hasbro could always be free to disregard it at a later point, kind of like Disney did with all the extended universe Star Wars things, right? So, you know, it's up to you if you consider like this form or this form parts of Ravage's history. The only two things we do know, you know, 100% for sure across the board, he had a G1 form, he had a Beast Wars form. The rest of this stuff, for me, is just kind of wishful thinking that, you know, the character evolved a little more over time. Of course, in my own personal headcanon, I can ignore the laughably small and flat head on the Botcon toy, which every time I look at it, it's just sad. Like, imagine if you had this toy, but the head on it actually looks something like this. It'd be a much better looking figure. And this completes our look at the new Pulse exclusive Decepticons Forever and Covert Agent Ravage. Overall, I'm very, very pleased with this 2-pack. I never did get the original Beast Wars Ravage figure that was like the Japanese and collector club or whatever exclusive. Yeah, and it goes for stupid money on the secondary market. So I'm very happy we got another shot at, you know, that version of the character. Plus, we get one that's much more screen accurate looking. I mean, I love the original, don't get me wrong. It's still very cool in its own right, but they took a lot of liberties, right? The head was, you know, very different from how Ravage appeared in the show. So it doesn't really scratch that screen accuracy itch. I mean, I'd still love to have it, especially that and the Tigertron redeco. But I'm still very, very happy with this guy. They went through a lot of effort to make this toy special, not just like some recolor with a new head, which is, you know, admittedly the kind of stuff you get as these like con exclusives. They're not usually like breathtaking. The G1 Ravage, again, I couldn't really care less about. I mean, it's cool he's included just for the fact that you can have him in cassette mode and throw him in the little tape deck thing. I think that's great. For me, they could have just included just like a plastic version of the cassette, like non-transforming, just to lower the cost of this. This is $53, which is, you know, about the cost of a leader class. And if it weren't for the exclusivity of it, I don't think this would really be $50 worth of product. You know, you got a very nice deluxe, like, you know, I'd say maybe $30, right? Because he does get some very extensive retooling. He's pretty big, a lot going on. So let's just say Voyager price for him. And, you know, the fancy packaging helps sell that. And then when you throw in this Ravage here, who's worth like maybe $5, it's just, it doesn't feel great paying $53 for this. I mean, yeah, I think it's worth it given the exclusivity and how awesome it is to get this guy. But yeah, I'm not crazy about the price. So yeah, I absolutely love this. I can't wait to put Ravage on my Kingdom shelf with the other Beast Wars characters. I'm definitely going to leave the G1 toy in his tape mode because just I don't need him for anything other than a prop, really. And I'm so pleased with this. I'm so happy they actually, you know, looked at what people want and made this a reality. So if you haven't already picked this up and it's still available, I highly, highly recommend getting this if you're any kind of fan of the Ravage character, which, I mean, let's face it, who isn't? Ravage is awesome. And, you know, especially if you're a Beast Wars fan, this is a very, very cool set. And even though it's a little pricey in my opinion, I think it'll be worth it to pick up. I love everything about this. I love the backdrop it comes with. Even the packaging itself is really nice, beautiful artwork. And then, of course, the main seller, our new Beast Wars Ravage. So, you know, if he's still available, absolutely grab him. You will not be disappointed with this set. Of course, that is just my take on this. Now I want to know what you all think. Are you quite as sold on this as I am? Do you think this is kind of like a godsend from Hasbro and they're answering our prayers? Or are you disappointed? Would you like to see something different? You know, maybe a non-transforming Ravage so he doesn't have the kibble if you're like really big on the screen accuracy. Do you like the fact that he comes with a G1 Ravage or do you not like it? How do you feel about the fur? Like, do you wish you didn't have it or does it not bother you? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the new Pulsecon exclusive Ravage 2-pack. And with all that said, I will see you next time.